Hello, everyone. Before we start the podcast, I'd like to mention Pro Political Gear. Check out propoliticalgear.com for your political apparel today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pro Political Pod. I am your host, Chris Caputo. Alongside me, my co-host, Andrew Cornick. And it's a Friday, and we got more news to share.
Let me be clear.
You peddle false narrative.
Sexy move.
We'll see who cancels who.
Watch me.
So, to start off this Friday morning, we have DeSantis is being sued by Disney. Yes, you heard that. Now, this has been going on for a few days. We've been talking about it, and we kind of saved it for the Friday show because there's just so much going on, and there's so much still going on. And, well, we have a quote from Disney. It said, a relentless campaign to weaponize government power against Disney in retaliation for expressing a political viewpoint unpopular with certain state officials. Disney is charging back at DeSantis. So DeSantis is basically trying to take away like a piece of property, and Disney's getting really tight about it because, as you would, right? So I think it's Reed Creek, I believe it's called.
Yeah.
Right? Something like that. And they're upset about it. And also, we have a response from no other than Nikki Haley. So why is this a big thing? Well, because DeSantis most likely is going to be running in 2024. We'll be covering that, of course, when he says he runs. We'll be one of the first people to say it, I guess, right? But Nikki Haley's response to this was on Twitter Hey, at Disney, my home state will happily accept your 70,000 plus jobs if you want to leave Florida. We've got great weather, great people, and it's always a great day in South Carolina. And then she wrote, SC, for South Carolina, is not woke, but we're not sanctimonious about it either.
Yeah. So it's like a funny little pot shot, right?
Yeah, it's a little, it's a dent in the car. A little dent, but nothing crazy.
Yeah, it's a funny case. I mean, basically the context too as to why the exact reason why they're being sued. Basically, Disney has owned they basically had control over this property for about 50 years, and DeSantis basically took out the people that were already there working with Disney, like that ran that area, and replaced them with people aligned ideologically with him. So Disney and they basically, in a way to retaliate against that, they tried to they basically voted the people that were being replaced by DeSantis people voted to basically strip all their positions power away so that they couldn't do anything. But then I think either they voted on it or the actual state of Florida voted to basically avoid that ruling that the old people in charge made to give them back the control over that property. So now that's why Disney is suing them. So it's a very tit for tat kind of thing. Disney historically has, they have really good lawyers, and there's plenty precedent of them impacting U.S. law in a very direct way, especially for a media company. It's not the most common thing in the world, but they skirt. I mean, copyright law is different, so that they can keep some of their characters, and just in general, they're just very well funded. They have so many lawyers. They're one of the biggest corporations in the world, right?
Well, you look at what they're doing with Mickey Mouse, right? Remember we talked about this with Mickey Mouse? Yeah, it's like they're able, and they have so much pull where they're able to push that off. So if you don't know what's happening with Mickey Mouse, is that it's Mickey Mouse because the owner of Mickey Mouse is Walt Disney. And we all know Walt Disney passed away. So what do you do with Mickey Mouse if it's owned by Walt Disney? Well, you're supposed to become a public, what is it, a public figure or what?
Public domain.
Public domain, right? Something like that.
It's a set amount of time. It's not when they die. It's so they'll a company can own a property, intellectual property, for a set amount of time, but once that time's up, then they go into public domain. So what happened was that Disney delayed that process several times over when the copyright for Mickey was about to expire. But they haven't changed in a while. It doesn't seem like that's going to really change again. And I think especially with the extra pressure put on Disney as a company, I don't think they'll even have the leverage to really do that anymore, at least in the near future. So, but now what the trick is that it's that original interpretation of Mickey. So I believe next year or in the next couple years. It's Steamboat Willie was the first cartoon that Mickey Mouse was in, if you don't know. And that will be a public domain. So that version of Mickey will be a public domain character that anyone can use in their media property or whatever.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
I mean, we'll
They-
see how much pull
they've
they
had a lot
have
of impact.
then.
I think with this law though, this lawsuit, I think they'll definitely, at the very least, kind of stop DeSantis from taking complete control over this district, because I mean, corporate power tends to win in this country, and you kind of see that too with how Nikki Haley kind of framed it. And there's other Republicans even too who are attacking DeSantis for doing that, being so aggressive against Disney, because there is like kind of like a rift in the Republicans right now. There's some more committed to the culture war stuff, like who legitimately believe in this insanity, and then there's others who, like, you know, they're team rah rah like for it, but at the end of the day, I mean, they really care about corporatism, you know, tax cuts for themselves and their rich friends and all that stuff. And Haley definitely, I think, aligns more with that side. So of course she's gonna kind of be like, oh well, you know, I would like these jobs, and you know, you guys are woke, but I don't care as long as you're making us money. And it's pretty funny because, you know, obviously, like, at least she's consistent, right? You know. She's just like, hey, it's about the money at the end of the day. But as someone running for president, the play of like attacking DeSantis is kind of funny because all you're really doing is helping Trump, right? Like, DeSantis already has like a really minuscule chance of winning the primary at this point. Like his chance has really been shot because of the indictment for Trump, just because of like how weak DeSantis actually has been as a candidate thus far, as a potential candidate. He's not running. So Haley really just trying to bury him. Like, does she want to like stay as like a Trump administration person? Does she think she can win? She might. Which is funny. Like, does she think that if DeSantis doesn't run, that all that support will go to her? Because it won't. People aren't really ideological or consistent. They're not even strategic in how they want to vote. They just want to vote for who they like. If they're voting for DeSantis, it's not because they're like some of them do think like, oh well, this guy, you know, he's more electable maybe, so we want to vote hit for him. Most of it, they just like him. So if they like him but like Trump second best, they're just gonna go to Trump. So it's a very funny calculation from Haley.
I think what you're saying is true in the sense of that I think that she's gonna run, and all these other guys and girls are gonna run. I don't know if there's gonna be any
Girl,
more girls,
singular.
but you know what I mean. I usually, when I say guys, it's usually universal. So use that going forward before someone says, "Oh, you used the word guy wrong." No, I use guys usually like universally. So
Yeah.
all these guys that are running for office, what's gonna happen is exactly how Biden got in the slot that he did. Everyone's gonna drop out. Everyone's gonna attack Bernie, and then everyone's gonna drop out. All the moderates drop out, and they go for Biden, right? So in this race, a lot of them want to attack DeSantis, and then they're gonna drop. Because here's another thing: you attack Trump, that's almost career suicide, and everyone
For the
knows that.
Republicans, yeah.
Yeah. So why would you do that? Is really the question. Well, there's a reason why you attack DeSantis, because he either won't respond to you, or he does, and it's like just a generic political, back and forth. It's not going to be career suicide if you attack DeSantis.
Yeah.
I mean,
He
it
just
could
doesn't have
be,
the
but
chops for it, honestly. Like, he'll just say something kind of, I mean, what? He's gonna say like, oh, you're subservient to the Democrats? Like, okay.
yeah, I mean,
Like, Trump will like have like a whole thing. His team will come up with some crazy thing that
oh
people
yeah,
will find really funny.
I think the best is his ad with the pudding,
The pudding fingers. Yeah,
the pudding
like
fingers.
there's just not really a lot of room for that, I guess, in the Republican side, and Trump has like all that kind of energy.
Trump has he has a special type of energy that I don't think that any other politician carries in the current moment. I think we could agree on that.
Mm,
Do you
maybe.
think there's another politician that carries that same charisma, the same way of doing things? Like if there
Well,
was
not
another
the
candidate,
same, but like
but
that are
okay,
that have charisma and like I can have like a funny social media presence. Yeah, sure.
in a similar way as Trump.
I mean, not in a similar way, but those
I'm
aspects,
talking
yeah.
in a similar way as Trump, because basically what I'm saying is Trump can only
Like
do.
being like an asshole. Like it's
He
funny, but that's what it is.
he can be, and that's like kind of the beauty of his campaign. If you think about it,
Like be an
everyone.
asshole and get away with it. That's like literally
Yeah,
what it is.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, he could absolutely get away with that. No one else can get away with that. You have someone else that acts like that, and they getting tossed, especially on the Republican side. They getting tossed. So
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, and
No, I
people
mean on the
love
Republican
that.
side, they tends to come up more on that side because you had Sarah Palin back in the day. You have Chris Christie. Like those guys were like kind of dicks, but they were dicks in like a funny way.
Yeah, but Trump
Uh,
is a whole lot funnier.
and
A
it's the
whole
evolution of
lot.
that, right?
I guess it could be an evolution of that. I mean, he's really funny. I mean, look at the rally that he just had, right?
Yeah,
I think we're gonna get into Trump later on, I believe, right? Um, like
there's
later,
always something, right?
right? Always something. So we're gonna get to Trump later on, but with DeSantis, it's gonna be interesting, like all things. But what's really gonna be, I guess, disruptive is everything towards his campaign. Like, what is his campaign gonna do going forward with this? Like, is he gonna be running for president? It,
Probably not.
I mean, it looks like he is though. So we'll see what happens, and maybe it's a way for him to stay in Florida and to run in 2028, which might be the best solution. And like I said, I think DeSantis looks like a
He's
superstar,
in such
but
a shit
because you
spot.
have,
He'll never be
yeah,
president
I don't know if you could say never. I don't think you say never.
unless something drastic changes. But if things stay how they are, he'll never be president.
You don't know. We have to see how he fights all these things that he's fighting. Like Disney, we got to see how he fights this.
Uh,
That's how we're really gonna get an understanding of how he
that's how he's
does
been doing
things.
it. I don't think he's gonna get much further.
Well, we're gonna have to see. I mean, he's been passing stuff, whether people like it or not. All I think he has to do is fight the people that he says that he's gonna fight, and that outcome will really show the people what he can do. And people know that he could win over like a company like Disney. Like I think there's some kind of uh
I mean,
I,
what
I think people look at that and will turn around like, wow, you know what? He took on Disney. That's a big corporation. You know what? I like this guy. And of course, most of these people are gonna lean right.
there's a lot of
Okay.
angles to that, though. I mean, you could say, you could look at, oh, he attacked Disney. That's cool. He attacked a big corporation, but others are gonna look at it and be like, I mean, he attacked Disney. What are they doing wrong? Like from someone who doesn't follow the stuff
Well,
super vigorously.
then they ask the question, and like I said,
Mm.
it's he's gonna get a lot of people from the right, though. I mean, that's what he's gonna get. But I think there's some independents that will turn to him.
I'm sure some, but it's like the same thing we've been
I think a
saying.
good
No,
amount, but
it's the same thing we've been saying.
it is the same thing we've been saying. But
He'll get
like I
like
said,
he just panders to the right, and like he signed an abortion thing the other week. I mean,
yeah.
it's all just pandering to the right, and then he's gonna go in a general election and then be ripe for all these like attacks of being far right, and then he kind of loses his one electability case if he's seen as just as extreme as Trump, if not more so on certain issues.
I mean, the Trump's attacks on him have been great. Like,
Yeah, and then imagine he wins a primary and all those attacks are still like out in the air. Like if Trump is attacking him on
I,
Social Security and Medicare, what do you think freaking Biden's gonna
yeah,
do?
no, it's true, it really is true. Um, but again, a lot of people then they could go into the whole why Trump lost in 2020, right? Where people just didn't like him for one guy over the other. So it could be like, all right, we're tired of Biden, and then they want to jump ship and go to DeSantis. So it could be a play like that, right? So anything can happen. We know a lot of these states are pretty tight, so
I don't know. I think the fact that Democrats overperformed the way they did in their midterms, given the financial circumstances of things,
but you have to
that
look,
says a
and
lot
we've
about
talked
state of
about
thing.
we've talked about the midterm election, how the candidates, poor candidates, and you had even poorer ads. The
Yeah,
ads
but
were
they were
SNL
really
comedy skits. It's like they were like
yeah, but
caricatures.
political
They
ads
weren't
aren't
as
what change.
serious, and
Political
it
ads don't
wasn't.
matter.
Listen,
Like in the sense where it's like they're not gonna
did you
change
saw those
minds. They never change
commercials?
minds. They were bad, but they're not what made them
They're
lose.
seen more as a joke
What
online,
made
and
them? No, it wasn't the commercials. It was
it
you're
didn't
right. It
help.
was poor candidate quality, but also
Yes.
actual issues on the table, things like abortion. You know,
Well, that also ruptured everything, which I
that
don't
was
know
a
why
big
they would
one.
vote for
Also,
that.
things like the election fraud stuff. Like those two things. I mean, they're just too extreme, and it's like you're gonna have another guy who's viewed as a really extreme run against, Biden.
I mean,
It's the same
Republicans did
thing.
win. They won the House, so there's obviously and especially like
They
in New
barely
York.
won the House,
But
and
look at New
they
York.
won the House because the like Democrats in blue states suck. Like that's literally like if Democrats in blue states were like the Democrats like in like the Midwest where they're kind of more like together and more worker oriented, they probably would have like destroyed in the House elections
But
too.
they
But they
didn't.
lost. They got complacent in a lot of safe districts or districts that Biden won, and they lost.
You know what? I
Like
think
it's
that a lot of
within
Republicans got
striking
complacent
distance.
too, though. I think a lot of Republicans got complacent too. I
I
think a lot of
mean,
them thought that
why
a
wouldn't
red
they be
tsunami was
complacent?
coming.
Historically speaking, in a midterm election, especially in a borderline
I
recession, just
get
like we were
it.
going through in 2022, they both like it's not like both the Democrats and the Republicans were campaigning at their peak. They're both not campaigning at their peak, and they had bad candidates on both sides. And despite the fact they had bad candidates on both sides, one clearly massively outperformed the other. Like,
I mean,
and
but
it's a
like,
trend too because in the midterms of 2018, like obviously they were expected to win by a lot, but the metrics by they won in 2018 were like astronomically, and there was like uh it was kind of like a variance of how well they did in 2018, like how much better they got like in the House especially back then. And then in 2020 it was kind of weird because like on both sides there were more votes for both the Republicans and the Democrats, but obviously the Democrats won. I mean, when an incumbent president usually would at least hold on, which that didn't happen obviously.
mhm.
And then you have 2022 where it's like okay, like the economy's in a shitty spot. COVID's still kind of like a thing that you can kind of use to pin on the person in power as like, hey, things weren't really going great. And despite that, I mean, they gained seats in the Senate and they barely lost the House. So, and it's because of the extremism. It's because of poor candidates.
Well, of course the extremism, but and of course the poor candidates. Look, we've seen
I don't. But
articles
I mean, I don't
where
see. I don't see
the
how. I don't see how
Democrats,
Biden really loses in 2024.
but
I'm gonna be honest.
the Democrats, they funded a lot of these, very MAGA extreme Republicans because
Well,
they
I'm
felt
not.
like
That's
they
that's
were gonna lose.
terrible. Yeah, it's
But,
terrible that they did that.
you
But
know,
I'm just talking about the optics of them winning, the
but
chances of them winning.
look at some of these candidates. They just
And
weren't
to my
made
knowledge, I
to
don't think
win.
there's a Democrat super PAC funding Ron DeSantis. In fact, they want Trump. They think Trump's easier to beat than DeSantis, which to me, I think they're both pretty beatable. I
I
think the
But like I
the
said, I think
degree is
DeSantis has a
overstated.
good chance to beat Biden. I think
I think
doesn't.
any of them do, but I don't think he has like a much higher chance to do it than Trump does.
I maybe, but you're telling me people who vote for Trump aren't gonna vote for DeSantis? They're gonna sit this one
No,
out so then they can pot on
no.
their couch and watch Fox
Well,
and
some of
say,
them might
"Oh
actually. Some of
look,"
them might.
and
Some of them
say,
might.
"Oh look what Biden is doing." Like
Some of them
no,
might.
oh, but most of them are gonna go to the polls. They're gonna go for DeSantis. There's no way they're just gonna sit there and
Okay,
pout
do you
for
think?
another. I mean,
Yeah, but you
okay,
know who's gonna sit there and pout
who's
if
gonna sit
Trump
there and
loses the election? Trump.
pout?
He's gonna pout. He's gonna
Okay,
say it was stolen. He's gonna say it was rigged. And
okay,
do
but
this is the same guy that told his people not to vote by mail, and they didn't vote by mail. If he loses his primary and says it was rigged and say that it was like a cheated system, do you think they're gonna vote for the guy that they think cheated him?
we're gonna have to fucking play out then. I mean, I guess I guess that's a point. I can't refute that.
Like, I mean, I'm sure like most of them will still vote for the Republican. I'm not gonna act like, oh yeah, it's like over, but it's not like a big difference, and that's a reason. Just in general, like I don't think he's gonna animate enough new voters that Trump wouldn't animate to really make it a substantially higher likelihood. Maybe it's a little bit more likely,
mhm.
but it's not like drastically.
I think DeSantis is one of those candidates who people look
And I
at it
don't
and be
think
like,
he
he
doesn't he
got it
doesn't
done,
he
type
doesn't
of.
have that X factor that Trump did, where it's like, okay, well,
Nobody
I want this new
does.
thing.
Nobody has that X factor that Trump has.
But
Nobody.
I'm saying it's bad because Trump
But
had the X
everyone
factor in
knows that.
2016, especially, where it was like, okay, like I'm just gonna pull a lever on this and see what happens. Like DeSantis doesn't have that. People know he's like. I feel like most normal people know he's just like a moderate. They're not moderate. He's like a
Ah.
no, he's not moderate. I misspoke. He's like
Ah.
a just like a generic politician. Like that's what they see him as, and that's how he like when he responds
Look,
to like criticism and stuff. Like that's just how he acts. He's just a normal politician.
we'll
And in
see
some
what
ways it's better,
happens.
and in other ways it's a lot worse because
I I think that there's a growing liking towards him,
there's a
and
growing disliking towards him. He's
there
getting
is that too. There
destroyed.
is. I mean, he is getting destroyed, but I want to get onto that a little bit later because we are going to talk about Trump and we are going to talk about poll numbers. So
Okay.
I do want to like get to the next because we could spend all day talking about this. So I want to definitely get to the next, which I believe you have for us.
Yeah. So if you're not familiar with the conservative media world, there's Steven Crowder, who is a pretty big deal in the online right. He makes a lot of videos, provocative. He has a show on YouTube. It's been demonetized a couple months back. Did we talk about that on our show? We might have talked about it on our streams when we did those
Mm,
about with Daily Wire, like how he was offered a contract, but he called it like a slave contract, and
I
it was
don't
like
think
a
we
whole.
talked about it on this show. No,
No, we okay. Well,
we started it in March, and this stuff happened like January, February. So
yeah, and there's a lot of controversy with him, but now the latest one is he's going through a divorce, which normally it's like a private matter, but he talked about it on his show in a public setting. So of course we're gonna talk about it in our public setting because he's a political guy, influential, whatever. And in it, I mean, he's basically called out Candice Owens, who's another, far right commentator who works for the Daily Wire, because during that feud, she kind of implied like, oh, he has a lot of skeletons in his closet, and he really shouldn't be doing this or whatever, because he was basically using the contract, framing it like it was bad recorded conversations to basically like get like an email list for his own like competitor or whatever. There's no update on that competitor, by the way, is there? I haven't heard anything from it.
on the competitor of
To the Daily Wire that Crowder was trying to push through.
no, I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, basically,
No.
I mean, during that whole fiasco, yeah, Candace Owens implied that there's a lot of like issues that he has, and I guess now we know that the issues are a divorce. And the video, like him talking about it, was really weird, and Chris noticed this too. Like immediately in the video, he's like, "Yeah, it wasn't my choice to do a divorce, and unfortunately in Texas, the wife can decide that we want a divorce." And it's like, I mean, yeah, I mean,
No, it's pretty
if
wild stuff right
if
there.
someone doesn't want to be with you, I think that's how it works. A relationship, you need two to kind of tango, right? It's not like, oh well, I decided this, so now that's it.
Well, no, he agrees with you. It takes two to tango, meaning you both have to agree to it. He didn't agree to
Oh,
it. So
okay.
actually, you're right. You're
Well,
right.
I mean to actually stay in a relationship. If it's not both of them are happy, then it's probably not a
Look,
relationship worth having.
it's definitely unfortunate. But this, and we watched a clip about this before we started recording. Filing for divorce started in like October, maybe 22nd of 2021. So this has been a long time coming. I don't know how they're not divorced by now. I don't know how long divorces take, but I didn't know
It
they
can
ticked
be a
this off.
long, expensive process.
Oh yeah, well,
But
and I don't think he signed the prenup.
I don't know. It
And
doesn't really
listen,
matter. But
this man has a lot of money. I mean, listen, he's a political commentator. Hopefully we see some of that one day. But it's one of those things where he's a famous guy. He's got a lot of money. It's a lot on the table. Um, you know,
yeah,
it's,
it seems because there's some reporting coming out now, of course, about it. Because of course, there's like a video of them kind of having an argument. So she was gonna leave, and he didn't want him to leave the car because he wanted to have access to the car, and but she didn't
you
want to
watched that
walk
whole
there, take an
video?
Uber. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, you watched it. Okay.
yeah, I did. apparently they get kind of heated. Apparently one of them says, "I don't love you." It's like a whole thing.
I think really when it comes in is like when you
Allegedly,
read it when they go inside. Yeah.
yeah, allegedly off camera, she basically says something along the lines of like, "Your abuse is sick," and he kind of says, "Watch it." Or no, that's in the
No, that
video.
was
What's
on
off?
camera. That was
What's
on
in the
camera.
video is that he says in a threatening tone, "I will fuck you up," which yeah, kind of yikesy. Which okay,
Eesh.
the article admits that he admits to this. Which, by the way, I mean, apparently, like, it's all, allegedly whatever, but also he does say in his video that there was no physical abuse. So for now, until there's something that proves otherwise, we'll just assume that's true. But
Maybe there is no
it
physical
does
abuse. I mean,
seem
it could be
clear though that
verbal.
there is verbal abuse, there's threats going on, like, you know. And also, her family, his ex-wives or whatever, they didn't like, and apparently she didn't like that he went public with this information, even though like other people were like kind of implying it and stuff. He kind of went forward with it, so that's also something to consider. Which also something article mentions that you mentioned was that the divorce started in 2021.
Hmm.
In the video, he says that she wanted a divorce. He makes that point, but apparently, like leading up to the divorce, like being like officially started, he hired his own divorce lawyer. So it's something just to keep in mind. If it's possible that he knew and he was just trying to prepare or whatever, but
Well, of course. I
yeah,
mean, look, if you're a man or a person, it doesn't matter who you are. But if you have money at stake, if you have a lot of money, just money, or not even that. I mean, divorces. I mean, we see a lot of divorces. I mean, you can be stripped of a lot of things, and to me, honestly, I think for a lot of it, it's pretty unfair how the systems work. So I understand that, and I don't wish anything bad upon him, even though I do not agree with a lot of what he says at all. Even of course, Andrew doesn't agree with him, but like neither of us really agree with anything he says. We don't think that his jokes tackle on or his political stuff really tackles on. But I really you don't really want to see this. Divorce is really a sad thing. You don't want to see all these sad things, but I must admit there is a little bit of humor in this when it comes to a lot of conservatives, like crashing and falling because of this, and talking about divorce and saying like, oh well. And like also with the traditional housewives and stuff like that, and they're all like mixing in together and like talking about divorce, and it's really something. You see it online like all day. You could just look at it. Um, it's some wild stuff, and it was shown how in January of this year, right? I think the video came out in January 24th, I believe, and it was Candice Owens. I think she was talking about how he refused the whole Daily Wire thing because of the slave wage, $50 million is slave wage, by the way. Um, so all of that, and she mentioned she goes, "Oh, uh, well, he probably has a lot going on right now, so I don't know. He's not in his right mind to refuse this, and yada yada yada." And this is exactly what she was talking about. I mean, and he let it out all up in the air. I mean, I guess
yeah, basically
I.
accusing her of extortion, which could be true,
But
honestly.
then she said that he was reaching into her DMs, which was crazy, telling her how she looked
Yeah,
nice, this and that. And another thing is that she looked on and realized that she follows her, or he follows her, Candice, on social media, but does not follow. He doesn't follow his wife, and he doesn't follow his wife's family anymore on social media. So I guess there was a whole big thing happened there. But going on with Crowder, I think I don't know if it was the right call of him to say it, but at the same time, I kind of feel like it was the right call because the news was gonna break, and I think it's better coming from
I mean,
the
from his
person
perspective,
himself.
I think he wants to like kind of control like the narrative on it a bit
Yeah,
more and
yeah.
have that.
I mean, it makes sense. If any of us were in that situation, we would be the ones to want to break that. I mean, that's pretty obvious.
Yeah, but it
You,
it
yeah.
kind of hinges on if like what he did was that wrong, which is looking pretty likely
You
based on
know,
what we know so far.
People fight all the time. Like if you like
Yeah, but threatening to
so
like
many.
beat your pregnant wife isn't really kind of goes a bit further than like a petty fight,
I
you
don't
know?
I don't I don't know what that means when he says that. Does he mean physically or verbally? Like, because if there's
You could think
no,
about be
well, we
real,
could,
be
we
real.
could, but physically, we don't know if she has any bruises or anything. So there's a lot of things
Well, I'm
here.
not
We
saying
don't
he did
know.
it, but threatening
Mhm.
is enough, you know.
We don't know
That threat
anything
is
about.
there,
Yeah, we
especially
don't.
when like Jim Crow's a big dude, like he's a big built dude, and she was
Oh,
like pregnant
absolutely.
and like a lot smaller than him. Like just saying that, it's like, what the hell's wrong with you?
No, it is what's wrong with you. That part was definitely what's wrong with you. But when you see the video of the ring, like there were some parts where I was like, "What's wrong with you?" Like for the most of it, but a lot of people fight, and this is a normal thing. I mean,
Normal doesn't
if you look
necessarily
at,
mean good, you know. Like divorces do happen pretty, like it's a somewhat normal occurrence these days,
of course,
and
but
it can be for stuff like this.
listen, there are some people that can be really toxic when it comes to fighting, like within relationships. And it was actually in Kendrick's recent album, right? And I don't know if you saw the music video, but it was like a really toxic relationship, like people and they're fighting back and forth. And there's a lot of toxic relationships out there, and unfortunately, it leads to a lot of divorces. We have a high divorce rate. Um, just people just I guess don't get along after a certain amount of years. And there's some people they kind of find out like, oh wait, maybe this guy's kind of crazy, for whatever it is. So, and what I thought was odd with the whole Crowder thing is that he didn't want her to use the car so then he could go to the gym and go to all these other different places. The guy's a multimillionaire. What is he doing with one car? So that's the first thing that I'm not understanding. Number two, why would you tell your pregnant wife, "I will fuck you up"? I just don't understand the stressing her out while she's pregnant. Like there is certain thing. Like I understand people fight, okay? And maybe it's not really in my say to say anything because of how, it's between two people, right? But there are just some things I feel like shouldn't be said. There's just in general, and then there's on top of the layer that she's pregnant. So you don't want to stress her out during that period of time, especially.
I mean, you should
So
just never say that.
no, of course, but I'm saying especially the fact that she's pregnant should even like double that for a guy like him to not say that. Like if he said it the first time, it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of crazy. But now it's like, ooh, like it's really insane. Um, I don't know what's gonna happen to him. I mean, he's been having heck of a year so far. And I can tell you, it's not it. This is not his year. Um,
Yeah, it's honestly funny too, because I
yeah,
think if he didn't do like the stupid Daily Wire attack thing, he probably would have. This probably wouldn't have broke out the way it did.
yeah, that too. I
He'd
think
probably
that.
have a lot of these people on his side,
But look,
honestly.
there's probably so much behind it that we don't know about, and there definitely is. There's definitely so much that we do not know. There has to be. There has to be at least
Yeah,
a good amount
I'd
of
be
what.
willing to bet
Why
a
would
lot
we
of it
turn
kind of
down?
makes him look worse, though. I'm gonna be
No,
honest.
absolutely, it makes him look worse. I mean, look, I mean, we've seen clips of his show. A lot of his stuff is very outlandish, and I can't agree on most of the stuff he says. Um, I don't know how he is at home besides that 3-minute ring video that he had. Um, I don't know if it gets worse than that. It could. It probably does. So it's upsetting. But one thing you didn't mention, I don't think, which this is where it gets really good. This gets really like gossipy and everything. So Candice invited his ex-wife to her show. So she turned around. She basically said, oh, "Okay, uh, you have your platform. You're telling everyone on your platform that you're like your story. Well, she doesn't have a big platform, so I'm gonna give her my big platform. She's gonna come on my show." I was like, "Oh my god, this is getting juicy for no reason." So a lot of conservatives are like not knowing what to do right now because the whole traditional marriage thing. Look, I'm a Catholic. I believe I believe in marriage, of course, and all this other stuff. But listen, it may not be too traditional, but stuff like prenups, I think, should be more common. And I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but there are just so many situations where you turn around and because you never know. You love someone in the moment, but you don't know how you're gonna feel 20 years from now, 15 years from now. Something crazy could happen and very unfortunate. So I think prenup should be more of a common thing. I know a lot of traditional conservatives look down upon that, but I think a lot of them are going crazy on online and everything talking about this. They don't really know where to go. So the conservatives are really the best way to put it that are involved in the situation that talk about the situation are kind of in turmoil over this. So
Yeah, it's pretty funny, honestly.
the turmoil is funny. It definitely is funny that comes out of this.
It's like the meme with the guy heartwarming. The worst people you know are fighting.
Yeah. Um, but unfortunately, and I always say it's unfortunate for the divorce because at the end of the day, you have kids involved, and so we wish well on the kids and everybody else. Hopefully, this will get solved because at the end of the day, you can't go after the children because of what the father has said or done. It just wouldn't be right.
Honestly, they
So,
might be better off now that they're not gonna probably be living with Stephen
oh man,
being
I
raped.
don't know. I can't say that. You said that. You said that. I never said
Dude,
that.
imagine,
I
imagine
never said.
they're going to like minstrel class. Like, this is what blackface is, Joey.
Oh, I didn't say any of these things. This is all you.
Today I'm gonna teach you that black people actually can't be farmers because they're too stupid.
I don't know, man. Like
Saying.
listen, man. That's all you. That's all you. You ain't catching me saying that. But I mean, and that's really the situation going on. So now there's a Crowder versus Candice kind of situation, or Candice
Yeah. Which
versus
also
Crowder, however you're
she's
gonna say
suing
it.
him, by the way. Didn't mention
Oh,
that.
oh, what's she suing him over?
For defamation.
These
There it
defamation
is.
lawsuits are going crazy. They're just all over the place. Once Americans realize that you could do this, because Americans love to sue in general, they're going all over the place. I think like almost every other episode we're talking about a case like this. It's just insane. Um, but I guess it's a trend to make money nowadays. So, or to make more money.
People lie a lot. It's
Oh,
also
people lie a
just the
lot, of
case.
course, of course. Um, but yeah, so I really don't have anything else to add.
So you have a poll to talk about now?
I do have a poll to talk about. I'm going to talk about it right now. I can't wait. So, we're going to go on to the Fox News poll. So, this was proposals to reduce gun violence, and there's a percent saying in favor too. Okay, so this is for favor. So, there's background checks for guns, 87%.
Let's go. Here he is.
Enforce existing gun laws at 81%.
Yep.
Legal
Sir.
age 21 to buy all guns is also at 81%.
Yep.
Require mental health checks are at 80%.
Yeah.
Flag people danger to self is at 80%. And
Yep.
require 30-day waiting period is at 77%.
Okay. That's like low-key a smart one because that would actually curb a lot of the kind of gun violence that is out there.
I think that is a very interesting.
Because
Mhm.
it gives you more time to vet the people, and also like for suicides it kind of gives you more time to kind of prevent them, I guess, or like have people kind of not do that.
It could be. But I also got another poll to put up. And then I have something interesting to say, I guess. So this is another Fox News poll. Favors proposal to reduce gun violence. So to ban assault weapons. 61%, but Democrats say 84% and Republicans say 36%.
That almost at 40 is kind of surprising, honestly.
Yeah, it is. And then we go into the more citizens carrying guns. We go into For all, it says 45%. For Democrats, it's 27%. And for Republicans, of course, it's going to be higher, 61%. Now, what was very interesting about these two polls here that I saw, I didn't see a poll saying should it be required to carry a license or a permit while occupying the gun in their pocket or in their holster, right? I thought that was pretty interesting that there was no poll on that. But these are definitely still interesting numbers that we're looking at here. These are numbers that, for a Fox News poll, I don't think that we would have thought would have
Well, I
came
mean,
up.
they tend to get a variety of people. There's pretty often that Fox polls will actually skew kind of liberal just because they'll just ask a lot of people. And
Mm-hmm.
on specific issues, people tend to be a little bit more liberal than they give.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the trend with American voters. Like they'll want like liberal like policies and reforms and then vote for like a far right that and then wonder why shit sucks.
I mean, definitely and we went through this when we were doing the interview with Steve, and I listed all these states with that went permitless, and a lot of the crimes have been in permitless, uh, states for guns. Um, Definitely, it's interesting to see how there's some other states that there's a lot of gun owners and still the crime is pretty low, but
That's
definitely,
sad.
I think
Wait,
a
you did?
new poll should come. I think there should be a poll saying, should we have them have permits?
There's a second
That
one
would
that
be
you're
more interesting.
part to this you're missing.
Oh, really?
Mm, yeah, it's passing stricter gun laws will make U.S. and then safer. They actually compare it to now and the results in 2016. In 2016, 52% said that stricter gun laws will make us safer. Now it's 43%. In 2016, less safe was 24%, and now it's 25%. And in 2016, it was 20%, and now it's 31%. So the most movement was no difference.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's still a plurality for safer. So, I mean, most people feel like it'll be safer, but I think just the sheer amount of like mass shootings and all that stuff happening, I guess it makes people feel kind of like doomer on it. And it feels like, especially because I think last year there were headlines about like, oh, there was gun reform passed, but it was very middle of the ground and stuff that's going to take forever to actually be implemented type of gun reform. So seeing like the headlines of, oh, gun reform passed, and then a year, like it hasn't been a year yet, but about 6 months or so of just like basically more of the same. I think people are starting to get more doomer on that. I could see.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, it's really unfortunate because it's just like, I think guns are one of the clearest examples of how the majority rules really don't matter in this country, like the will of what the people actually want. These really aren't crazy reforms. It's really like I don't even think they'd really lower gun sales like much at all. But regardless, I mean the NRA still like funds all these politicians who are just against any and all gun reform, period.
Well, again, we're in a republic, not a true democracy. So, unfortunately,
But even still,
you
I
know,
mean the representatives that represent us, they're not elected like they're not doing the things that people want to represent their people because they're representative
no, of
democracy.
course,
Yeah,
of
they're not
course,
representing people. So even by that metric, they're not really. It's not really good.
money's got to stay out of politics, basically.
Yeah, true.
So,
Money, the corruption, all that
absolutely.
stuff.
I think you have something ready to go.
Yeah. So you guys remember a couple weeks ago we were talking a lot about what's going on in Tennessee because they had a shooting actually, and it led to protests by the more liberal people wanting gun reform in that state, which led to three lawmakers being voted on being expelled. Two of them were expelled, and then there was a massive backlash because, of course, it's very undemocratic to expel people in a very indirect way they did, and over such a minute thing, which is basically like a disrespected decorum. And they got their positions back, and it was like a big thing. And now they're kind of national stars because of it. And now I'm kind of happening again in this time in Montana. Um, Zoey Zephyr, she's a transgender representative from the state of Montana, and we talk about this issue a lot because it kind of comes up a lot, the transgender stuff. in the state they were trying to pass a bill to ban gender affirming care for like teenagers. And in the speech, she kind of says she kind of had like obviously she's going to be against banning that type of care, being a transgender person. She has that experience, and she has her speech. And at the end of it, she basically says that the blood of the people that die because of the law will be on your hands. And you can have whatever opinion you want about like if that's even like lines up or whatever. But she said that, and the response basically was this was too mean or whatever. So they basically they cut her mic off, and she wasn't able to talk about, I believe, this bill and some other and like another bill or something. Definitely the this transgender thing, they didn't let her basically speak on it. And as a result, that caused like people to go into the state house in Montana to protest and be like, hey, you're silencing this person, you shouldn't do that. So again, just like in Tennessee, they had a vote to censure her. She wasn't expelled; she's still an elected official right now, but she's basically not allowed to go in their state house to debate or vote on bills at all now. And so as of today, she's basically outside of she sits outside of the of right out, like a bench right outside the courthouse to kind of like do what she was doing, but she obviously can't interact directly with them, so there's like problems there. And I think they also just want her like away basically. It's really weird because it's like they didn't expel her, but they don't want her to do her job. Like I don't really get it, but it's like a weird. Maybe they're trying to. Maybe she's like suspended. It's like an odd thing. And yeah, I think it's very dumb, obviously, because you know I just think that regardless how you feel about any politician, if you're gonna like you voted like people voted for them to represent whatever part that they're from and to evaluate and to say to add their input basically to the discussion in the state or the country, whatever, the town precinct, etc. So to censure her over something like this, it's like you're kind of just removing a part of Montana from the discussion, and obviously the people that vote for her feel the same way, because if you look, like she has like these speeches now and for this issue and rallies, and a lot of people show up for state that people don't really think about in the grand scheme of things often. So it's definitely a pretty crazy time we're living in when it comes to a lot of these states that are going to these more conservative states that pass laws like this, and the retaliation that you get. Similar thing happens with abortion too, by the way. I don't know. You have any thoughts on that?
Well, you're definitely not biased because I know you're a fan of George Santos, so you wouldn't want him to get removed. So, you
It's
know,
true.
so Andrew actually believes what he says. It's not, he may be left and have his opinions, but he's okay with George Santos being in the house. So I mean, look,
He's a
um,
funny guy.
to censor people, I mean, it's funny. Censoring people is quite
Well,
interesting.
censure. It's like a. It's not. I don't know if you're saying censor, but
Oh,
your
well,
censor, like, yeah. No, pronunciation's weird. But you can go on.
anyway, um, I don't think they should bar her
Nah.
at all. Um, because like you said, it's like you're taking it away from people that live in Montana. If they vote,
Yeah.
if people like, okay, you
Well,
cannot
I'll give
like the
him. I guess.
person. If you vote for somebody, like you said, then that's it. They got in. That's it. You're gonna have to wait till next time. That's it. And they'll, you
Yeah.
know how you get them out? You beat them at the box. That's it.
Like
That's
if they commit like a crime or something serious, that's one thing. But for it's like, oh, I mean, she said something we didn't like, and then people protested because we silenced her for saying the thing we didn't like. It's like, okay. Like someone literally was like, "Oh, you in the video you see someone threw something," and it's like who cares? Like, oh man, she threw something, but then there'll be the same people who look at like Jan 6 and be like, "They were just touring the building." It's like, okay, buddy. It's like it's really weird.
Is there a video of her throwing something?
No, it's not her. It's someone in the protest that happened,
Oh,
because
oh,
yeah,
okay.
it's not even her throwing it. If it
Oh,
was her
so it
throwing it, I was
wasn't
like,
her.
okay, maybe
Yeah, I was
like,
gonna say, yeah, then maybe she should be gone or should be barred. But okay.
but even
So,
that's like so like I don't know.
well, that would be unprofessional, Andrew. I mean, I think we know that there's
Yeah,
certain
yeah,
things you
yeah.
should do and shouldn't do. I mean, that would be unprofessional.
But that's like all these arguments are is like unprofessional, like against decorum, like whatever. Like I don't know, just do your job. That's what I say. Just do your job and don't hurt anyone. Those are my standards for being a lawmaker. Unfortunately, I mean, the lawmakers hurt a lot of people in very indirect ways all the time, though. So you gotta think about just like these people voting to, ban gender affirming care for people. Yeah. That's how the cookie crumbles, though.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah. So, speaking of people who want to ban that stuff, we have one Tucker Carlson.
Hey.
He was fired the other day by Fox News. Did we say fired or did we? We probably said fired. We were right. It was obvious he was fired.
Well, he
But
was
we know,
released. We
like,
said he was released. I mean,
did
I
we
don't know
say
if we did. We
he
say
was
the word
fired?
fired though. Do we really have to say fired? I mean, it's the same thing. Released, fired, right? I
Yeah.
guess release is more of a tamed version, but okay, if you
Mm-hmm.
want to say fired, go ahead.
Well, it was speculated because it just kind of happened, and if you watch his last episode, he kind of seemed like he was just going to be back on the next day, like normal. But he's gone from Fox. He's not around, and now we know, like for sure, like at least three more reasons why. Because obviously, we were talking about the Dominion case, and there's more. Smartmatic is suing Fox as well for the election lie, and Tucker is probably one of the worst people because for defamation you have to prove intent, and he has the clearest intent because he not only know that the election stuff was BS, he also kind of very wildly varies his opinion on Trump. For privately he dislikes him, publicly he likes him. So it's clear he kind of does this whole thing just to like rally up people. So it's pretty. So they can use that in a court of law to say, hey, you're defaming us intentionally and knowingly. But on top of that case, those cases, there's two now. There's also someone who works for the FBI. I don't have his name on, but a big part, like after January 6th, the narrative that Tucker tried to spin from it basically is that it's like an inside job. That people in the FBI were like basically caressing January 6th, and they were like kind of tripping. Like it's like a thing that actually it's based on something that actually would happen during the War on Terror, where FBI informants would kind of like they would find like Muslim men and kind of try to groom them to do like terrorism. So he would say, so he said, hey, this happened before. So this is what happened with January 6th. Like these FBI informants, they would kind of like get these, depressed conservative guys and try to rally them up and do this stuff. And one of the main people, there's someone he like named on his show multiple times that did this. And he went on 60 Minutes, I think like the same day that Tucker got fired, coincidentally. And basically was like, yeah, this guy like ruined my life. Like he kind of kept saying this, and now I get death threats from people who watch his show and all this stuff. So now I'm going to sue him. And on top of that, there's a producer that used to work for him that is now suing him for bad workplace and sexism. So I think when you kind of combine those things together, it kind of makes like a clear, like it just makes it apparent that, I mean, yeah, sure, Tucker's like the face of Fox in a way. Like he's the most popular person they had at this moment in time.
Oh, without a
But
doubt.
when you have all these controversies piling up, and it's like, okay, you already lost the network, like help them lose like $700 million, and then you're about to lose more money from Smartmatic. You're about to potentially lose more money from this FBI guy, and more from like their producer. Even if they don't lose every case, that's still you have to pay for the employers and all that. It's a lot of things. Another thing too with Tucker is that he got a lot of views and he's very important, impactful culturally. But in terms of advertisers, because he's in so many controversies and so many like boycotts and stuff, there's a lot of advertisers who pulled from on his show. Like he doesn't get the same type of advertisements that like daytime Fox shows would get. And you kind of notice that too, because like sometimes like we'll watch Tucker to like see like whatever stupid thing he's saying, and you notice the advertisements are all like loony, like far right adjacent stuff, like products. You don't get a lot of like super mainstream stuff on like Tucker's program in terms
To
of
be honest,
advertising.
I never really noticed. The only thing I know is that My
I
Pillow is
noticed
like on
that.
every other single commercial. I mean,
There's like
uh,
other ones too that it's like religious stuff and like just random like conservative products and stuff. Yeah. Do you know about the thing with Murdoch like, and his fiance with Tucker too.
I was just reading that under the bullet point you wrote, and I have no idea. I'm actually really intrigued. I'm
It's
sitting
really
here
this is just
I'm really waiting for you to say it because I was like, wow, I'm actually intrigued about this. I actually have no idea.
this is a funny one. So I don't know like how much I really buy this being like a reason, but Murdoch is like he's like a money guy. He's not really like into super into like the culture stuff as much. So apparently his ex fiance was though, like she's like a religious nut kinda. And she was like kind of infatuated with Tucker's show, and then I think she described him as like a messenger from God. And like
Interesting.
he kind of got like weirded out by it. And apparently they all were at his whatever fucking hellhole mansion shit for dinner.
Hellhole Mansion.
I don't know, he's fucking evil. And for dinner,
Interesting.
and during dinner, his fiance or whatever pulls out like a Bible and starts reading it with Tucker there, like reading like Exodus or something crazy. And he's just like has like the most uncomfortable look on their face. That's what they're saying. Did it happen? Probably. And is it funny? Absolutely. Like the fact that contributed to just like, yeah, I'll get this guy out of here. He's freaking.
I mean,
My
look,
ex likes him.
I will put it this way: the Bible is a sacred book, and I think that if you are religious, if you want to read it, that's great. Like I said, I don't know how many times I say it on the show, but I'm Catholic. I never even read the full Bible. I mean, I remember some parables here or there, but there are just some things that I think people have to chill with. I think religion and politics is one of those things that has to chill out. And I think that's why I kind of usually say that I'm a Catholic. I mean, you see me in my interviews, or if I get taken down my YouTube again, maybe not. But I do, like, usually when I go outside, I usually have a necklace with a cross on it. Um, but people have to know that you can't just take whatever you just read from the Bible and use it for everything, because it could be really misinterpreted in like many different ways. I mean, people turn away and be like, for example, I really want to use this for example, but I guess I will. It's kind of like people say, oh, well, trans people shouldn't exist because it says male and female and this and that. But then they turn around and say, it's, well, God will love you no matter what, and Jesus will love you no matter what. It's like, so what's going on here? What's the whole play by play? Like, I'm not understanding. So when you use the Bible, okay, um, it can be used towards anything. You can really use it towards anything. Um, it's funny. Yeah, like I thought about it. It's like using the trans. I guess is the most go-to thing. I'm not like a trans ally. I wouldn't call myself an ally. I would be called like a vigilante, if anything. Because I feel like there's some things that like I turn around I'm like, oh, well, maybe not this or that. But it's a very simple answer to throw back. It's like, doesn't God love everyone? So to use the Bible is very counterintuitive at times. So I wouldn't use it, and especially in politics. I would not use
I
it.
just think flat out like religion as a whole, any religion shouldn't really be in part of politics.
Well, absolutely. I absolutely agree. I don't
I
think
think
that should
there's
be
an
part.
interesting thing with that where it's like, because society is increasingly secular, there is discussion about how people are kind of using politics as a substitute for religion, which I think is an interesting thing. I guess it's like a motivator for like day-to-day activity.
Like, look, I think if a lot of people had religion in their life, I think that it's a good thing. I think religion's a great thing. It really is. I just think that there's in everything you do in life is moderation. You need moderation in life. Well, whatever thing you do, if you love something or someone, you have to also do it in
Almost
moderation.
institutionalized religion kind of demands a lot of life though out of you
I
for that
I
religion
un-
though.
I understand that, but you could look at something like, for example, like I'll always see, like, with conservatives, I know everything's the Bible, the Bible, the Bible. I won't see everything with like someone that's like Muslim. right? And they have to pray 5 times a day, and they have to look, towards a certain way. I don't know if it's towards the sun. I don't want to get it wrong, but they have to turn a certain way and pray 5 times a day. You will not hear that get pushed on anybody. They're not going to talk, well, actually, this says, so then that means everybody else has to. You know what I mean? It's not like, well, I can't eat pork. I can't have that bacon, egg, and cheese, so you can't. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
to dumb it down in simple terms. And Tucker really isn't like that. Tucker isn't really this, like, oh,
Well, he's amorphous. I mean, there's
yeah.
times where he is like that. There's speeches where he gives where he kind of is leading into that
Yeah.
more, but then he doesn't other times.
Yeah, but he doesn't strike me as this, like, super religious guy.
I don't think he is, but he's willing to spit it out when he has to.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, yeah.
I think that's true. Which I mean, speaking of that, I mean, he made a video too, like since he's been fired.
He
as
did
well.
make a video. It was like a 2-minute video.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't really say a whole lot in it. He kind of just said like, "Oh, there's a lot going on in the world. It's crazy." Like it could have been like a more tame segment of his, honestly. Like, or at least an opener for one.
Mm.
He's like, "Oh, there's a lot of things that they don't talk about," which includes just like things about war and stuff like that. And he'll say like, "Oh yeah, they don't want you to hear it or whatever," and it's like, I guess, but
Yeah, I mean, look, all this
I will
stuff's
say it's pretty
interesting.
funny that he did slip in the demographic change.
I
I think it's funny.
I will say this though. Apparently, being sued by producer, apparently he never met Tucker Carlson.
No, but she worked on the show.
He never met him, which was very interesting. I don't know how like it said, poor working conditions. I mean, I don't know what it was like, but definitely interesting. It could also be just, to attack him more because he's in a vulnerable state right now. He doesn't have a big corporation.
Well, this was before that he got fired. This was talked before then.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Like these were coming out. Like these were coming out before this happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's definitely still very interesting. Going forward, what's going to happen to Tucker? Tucker is like in this spot where he's like,
there's
it's
some
a mystery.
people saying he should run for president.
That would be hilarious,
Yeah.
but
A couple times. I think he'd be better than DeSantis. I'll say you
that.
that.
If Trump wasn't running, I would say yeah. Well, you know what's something that was interesting, and I think I mentioned this the last time, is that Trump did praise him on his work. So, and it was on Newsmax. Call me I don't know if you want to call it a conspiracy theory or not, but I think that there's some way he's probably going to Newsmax. But it depends on how much money they lose in that settlement. So we'll see what happens there. If they don't lose a lot,
I don't think they
like
can
a lot,
afford him, honestly.
yeah, well,
I really don't.
Look, I don't know. I mean, I went to CPAC. They sponsored. I believe they sponsored the event, and I also believe that they were a big part of, like, the news outlets that were there. They had a pretty decent setup.
Oh yeah, because Fox wasn't there, so they just replaced them basically.
Yeah, basically, exactly. And
yeah, but sponsoring an event is much different than hiring like the biggest cable news host.
No, but they had a nice spot though. They had a nice setup. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, the setup was nice.
Probably less money than having Tucker paying Tucker to come on.
They gotta have some kind of money. They had some, I guess, somewhat big conservative figures. I mean, none's bigger than Tucker Carlson when we're talking about like news show anchors, right?
And I don't know. I feel like, because no matter what he does, he's going like his influence is going to be down compared to Fox. Like, Fox already was like the most viewed cable news network in the country. Even without him. So
I think for some reason, the way it happened, I think he might transcend that, and he might actually be more popular being elsewhere.
I don't think so.
It could happen. It could not happen. But it depends on where he goes. Depends on how he handles it.
I think people saying that are kind of coping, because it's like, realistically,
maybe.
Like, if he makes a YouTube show, sure. I mean, I'm sure the first couple.
No, I'm not talking about
really
the YouTube
popular.
show.
I'm just saying as an example. Like, he's gonna have a bar of people who are gonna go out of their way to watch him, or just watch him on YouTube.
Of course,
especially
but
demographic-wise. Like, Fox really was perfect for him.
Of course, but I also think that, wherever he goes, the ball is in his court. Really, even if it doesn't seem that way because he just got exiled by Fox, the ball is still in his court because there's so many other places he could go.
Like where
he can make so much money.
Because the thing is too is that really like all he has is like OAN or Newsmax for
Dude,
cable
if
TV.
he were to start his own, he could start his own news network with how much money he probably has. He probably has a decent amount of money. He
I
really
actually thought
does.
about that. That's possible. You could start a network, but how far would that network go though, realistically?
You don't know.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, if he starts at the right time, look at Newsmax. Newsmax became totally relevant because of the 2020 election. So, not gonna say why. I don't want you to take this video down because God forbid we name that. But
Yeah. Well, because false election fraud claims.
stop! Don't you can't say that. You can't say that. They'll take this video
I can
down.
say that. I just
And
can't
I'm
say it
gonna,
actually
and
was
then I
rigged,
gotta
'cause it
repeal
wasn't.
it, and then we gotta strike on the channel, and then it's a mess. It's a mess. They took down my CPAC day one. That will be fought. We'll see what happens. But anyway, if he does it at the right time, there's a chance he could start a news channel. He really could. I mean, but here's the
I don't know.
thing. I think in
He would
his
have to be
contract, I think
smart
also in
about it,
his
but I don't think he
contract,
can be.
I don't think he could go on someone else's show until 2025. I think it says because he has
Okay,
like
that was part of
that
the
clause.
non-compete.
Yeah, I think that was a part of it. So,
No.
I mean, which is kind of it's just so bullshit. But
Hey, thank you, Biden. He might be stopping it.
oh, really?
Yeah, the labor. I think the Secretary of Labor is trying to end non-competes.
That is definitely interesting. See,
So
I
it'd
know
be
a lot
funny if
about.
like if the Biden administration is the reason that DeSantis that Tucker can just make his own show or whatever, or go and start trashing Fox. But
I
actually, he
know.
might not. Even if without non-compete though, he actually can't trash Fox too hard because apparently there's people behind the scenes who have like a lot of dirt on him built up.
Oof.
So yeah,
We'll
not
see what
surprising though.
happens. The reason why I know so much about the non-compete thing is because I watch wrestling and there's so many non-compete
Yeah.
clauses. Like it's like, oh well, in three
Well, you
months
must
I'll
have
see
been
this guy
happy hearing
elsewhere.
that then that they might end it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's great for me. I mean I could just see someone just leave and be like, okay, bye bye, but also then they can just hold them onto that contract and never use them. So that's also another thing. So either way, it's like you're not really getting
Well,
out
it's
of it.
still it's like one
These
thing. It's
companies are still gonna
one less.
hold you tight if they want you to. Um, but
Yeah. Anyways, I
I
think that's all.
yeah,
So
I think that's definitely now all for today. Hold it. I know we're like we passed the hour line, but we got one more. We got one more in us, okay? And this is what we were talking about before. We're talking about DeSantis because gotta fill the quota. 2024 is on the way, and Trump doesn't want to debate anybody in the primaries. And this is sad. I mean, we talked about how the DNC, and we totally took a nice big fat dump on the DNC, saying, "Oh, okay, you guys don't want to do your debates, and you don't want to include Marianne Williamson and was it Robert Kennedy is his name, right? Like, do you not think we should have? We should be having these debates." And Trump was like one of the best parts of the Republican debates. He brings ratings. He brings so many eyes to it, and it's like
he
there's
knows that's why I won't do it.
oh no, that's true. But there's certain candidates I will say that are, or maybe a certain candidate that I just tweeted out actually recently, before the recording, like earlier on the day, and you look at guys like Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, this guy, I gotta applaud this guy. I really do. He's really getting out there. He's one of those candidates that is hungry. I never seen such a hungrier candidate in, I guess, recent years, in the sense of like they know they're most likely not gonna win, but they're still trying to grab that attention, and and he's really grabbing it, and I'm really impressed by him. I must say, I think he's really impressive there. And no, I'm not even talking about views or anything like his political views. I'm just talking about like getting out there, and it's not even just mainstream media. Yeah, he's on Fox. Yeah, he was on CNN, but he's also doing podcasts. I hope he's on here one day. And it's like he's really getting out there, and I feel like a lot of these candidates really have to start looking into that if they really want to take themselves as a serious candidate. And unfortunately, Trump doesn't want to debate anybody, which some exposure to a lot of these guys. I mean,
That's why
you
he's not
look
gonna
around,
do it. Why
yeah,
would he give anyone a chance?
of course, but also, I mean, if he does do that, they could all back him and dump on DeSantis even more. But I mean, that might happen anyway. But you look at a guy like, and I tweeted out earlier today, and because I was kind of upset when I looked and I scroll and I look, because you see Marianne Williamson's getting the blackout treatment. You look at, in the past we talked about uh, who else experienced that, and you look at Perry Johnson, okay, and there was a poll that he was not on. They had Liz Cheney, they had Ron DeSantis, and they had Mike Pence. 3 people that they didn't even confirm that they were running. And this man still didn't make it. I mean, this guy's doing trips in Iowa, and I see him on social media, but a guy like him really needs to get out there in the media because he's going to experience that blackout that Marianne Williamson is going through right
He'll need
now.
to get the signatures this time, you know.
And also, another thing is he's got less followers than Marianne Williamson does. So it's one of those things where I see Vivek, he's very hungry. So Trump not doing this debate could hurt someone like a Perry Johnson. I mean, it's really not going to hurt. I mean, the guy's a rich man. He's in the auto industry. Um, but there's other candidates that could be out there that want to make their name for themselves. I mean, you look at 2016. I mean, people know who Ted Cruz is mostly because of 2016. So he really got out there. And we can talk about other people like in 2020 for the Democrats as well. So this is definitely something that, and it's anti-democracy, really, if you think about it.
Well, yeah,
I think
it is.
that's a big problem.
It
And
does
it's,
fit this side a bit more, though, I must say.
I mean, regardless of who it is, I mean, really, look, the Democrats did it. They screwed over Bernie. You have the Republicans back in what 2012. They screwed over Ron Paul. I mean, they do
And
these things.
2008.
Well, and 2008, he ran 2008 too.
Yeah, that was like where it really blew
I
up.
don't. Oh wow, I don't remember. I remember in 2012. But yeah, I mean, so if they screwed him twice, then Bernie he got screwed twice. So, like I said, it's undemocratic. It's not right. And you want to speak of something that's not right. Let's talk about something that's not right. Trump said he's not going to call crooked Hillary anymore. He's retiring it. You believe this? He's retiring it. He doesn't want to call her crooked Hillary anymore, which I guess gets her name out of the news finally. But now it's crooked Joe Biden. No, it's Sleepy Joe. It's Sleepy Joe Biden. It's not crooked. This is a
I think
problem
the
with campaigning.
calculation is smart in one sense. Because in 2016, I think you were able to paint Hillary as like a villainous force, you know? And I think if you ask certain type of voters, like who was worse, like that weren't even like explicitly liberal or conservative, they were more likely to say that Hillary was worse. This is pretty common. But in 2020, I think if you were asked those same kind of voters who was worse between Biden and Trump, then they would be more on the Trump side, partially because he's president, and also partially because Biden doesn't have the same degree of baggage that Hillary does. So I think he wants to kind of give Biden that similar degree of baggage. I don't think it's really gonna work, but maybe. I don't know. Probably
I think
not.
Sleepy Joe is so good. I mean,
I
to
mean, it's
really knock it
funny,
out.
which funny is usually what Trump does, but
Yeah, exactly.
it wasn't enough in 2020. So I guess he wants to kind of do the whole like he's the worst person ever thing, which I mean he does it anyways, but in a way that's more kind of like he's actually a threatening force that we need to be careful of.
Trump is getting old.
Yeah.
The sanctimonious, and crooked Joe Biden. Come on, dude. You know what? Put me in. I'll be the campaign manager. I'll spend this.
I think
I'll
Meatball
run
Ron
this.
pretty good.
Meatball Ron is the way to go. You call him Meatball Ron and you call Joe Sleepy Joe. That's how you run it. That's seriously how you run it. There are certain politicians that I just want to run their campaign. I just want to be a manager for someone's campaign. Just to fix some of the problems that I see. Because even like me and Andrew, we see these problems like immediately. Because this is what we do. We look at people's campaigns and we're like, all right, maybe they trying to do this, that, and this is what we do. This is what we call fun. Okay, this is our fun time. So And there are just some of them where I'm like, they got to make a U-turn. And I've said just a few minutes ago, you look at Vivek Ramaswamy, he's doing terrific. I don't know who his campaign manager is, but he's doing a splendid job. He really is. Perry Johnson, I want to take that job of being his manager because I'm telling you, it's not going that well. This man needs to get out in the media
And get him
more.
from 0% to like
Oh,
3.
absolutely. This man's got less than 1.5K followers on Twitter. He gets like he gets as many likes on Twitter as we did as our first couple of views on our first couple of podcasts. That's really where it's at, and it's pretty sad. It's sad, and it's one of those things that he needs to make a U-turn. I would love to just take a U-turn on his campaign. Absolutely, I would love to just work on a campaign and just like be able to. I don't know. I could say all this stuff and I could be terrible at it, but I really think that I could really like take a person and just switch them around. So, and I feel like some of these candidates going to have to make some switch arounds because if he does not do this debate right here, which is very big news, if he does not do this debate, then they're just going to be no namers. They're going to be like, who was
Goal.
that guy, right? Like, I could name you almost everyone in the 2016 election for the Republicans. I can name you almost anybody in the 2020 for the Democratic. Now, that's because I like politics. But there's certain key people that I think most people would know. Like if you brought up like a Ben Carson, like most people know who Ben Carson is. You know, um, or Marco Rubio, something like that. Now, if you watch the Democratic debates, you'd probably know of an Andrew Yang. Probably know of, say, I don't know who else is on that list. I
Yeah,
mean,
you know.
maybe not Tom Steyer. I'm trying to think of like names that people would know besides Joe Biden, Bernie. I mean, like I'm trying to think of names that other people would know because I would know all of them. I just name it through the list. Buddha Judge, absolutely. Oh, what's his name? Texas.
Yeah, we forgot.
Beto O'Rourke. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like I'm on camera. Okay, this is what happens. Sometimes your brain goes dumb. I had a Biden moment. Okay, I call it a Biden moment. Biden gaff. So, but look, you look at all these names. And you could see that someone like Beto O'Rourke was doing pretty decent in Texas. Now, I think it hurt him in his 2020 run because he talked about the AR-15s, which I don't think he should have never did because he would have had a better run in Texas. But it does help elevate people if you know how to run a good campaign. And I feel like that's going to be a problem for a lot of these candidates. So I hope Trump does this. I hope he really does do the debates because it just makes it more fun. I gotta be honest, it does make it more
He's
fun.
probably not doing it. Also, too, I mean,
Imagine the nicknames he would give
part of
everyone on
the
stage.
part of
Oh man,
the requirement to do a GOP debate is that you have to accept the nominee of the party, which he wasn't even willing to do in 2016. But he had to debate then, so he went along. But I think this time he's just gonna be like, yeah, I'm not doing it.
that's so trash. It's so garbage. I like it. Really, it would be upsetting if he would not to do it. Really, it would. It just like it wouldn't make sense.
He's censoring the process, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, I think we should hear everybody out because then a lot of
It's
people are not
crazy
going to
because
care
it's
to
like in
tune
a
in.
way this is just like this election cycle will basically just be a general election the whole time.
That's
And
it.
it's
So
literally just a rerun of
sucky.
2020.
Oh my god! It's literally just it's a rematch. It's a rematch, and I knew this was gonna happen. I said it's gonna be a rematch.
Yeah, I think everyone kind of expected it.
Like if Trump just won and did a good job at campaigning and doing stuff in 2020 and just won, we would never have this rematch. We'd have a clean slate for 2024. But now we have these two old men and we gotta wait until 2028. Can you imagine? It's only 2023. We have to wait until 2028 to get a whole group of new people. How sad is that? It's pretty sad, Andrew.
It'll give us some time to have like maybe a good candidate or two.
Maybe, but it's just so sad to see. It really is. So,
I mean, because I
maybe.
don't know, I'm thinking like as someone on the left. I mean, Marion's fine, but in a election where like people would actually be running, I don't really know who our best bet would be that can win because I don't know if Marion could win in an open election.
Look, I don't know. where she's going to be a few months from now or next year from now, but her poll numbers aren't looking so hot.
Yeah, no, there's no way she would.
I mean, I'm not saying that she wins, but I'm saying that she's not even in second right now. It
Yeah,
could
well,
change, but
I think
Kennedy's been the
I think
talk.
she's gonna end up being second because I think right now people who get polled, I think they see like a Kennedy and they're just like, oh yeah, because the Kennedys like they do have a lot of sway, Like if you throw like Hillary's name on there, she pulls really high fame recognition right now. Like people probably a lot of people even pull. I haven't never heard of Marianne Williamson or heard like 2 things about her.
Yeah, no,
But
absolutely.
if like I think when it's said and done and people actually like vote in a primary, I think I kind of expect her to actually be second, especially because Robert F. Kennedy's a little bit wacky with some of his claims. Like he's not
So
a traditional Democrat really at all.
I was gonna say I think one name I should have mentioned that just rang in my head. I was like, wow, that'd have been perfect. Another name to mention that people know of a lot now, and because of the 2020 debates, is also Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah,
you know, which is probably gonna be the next host of
coming
Tucker
soon
Carlson.
to
It's
the
gonna be
Fox News
Tulsi.
8 p.m. slot.
It's gonna be TGT Tulsi Gabbard tonight. I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it has a ring to it. I mean, it could happen. So, look, the election is very close, but very far. We have the first debate in August, and I can't wait. I really can't. It's gonna be it's gonna be a rough road,
It's gonna
and
be Asa Hutchinson's versus Nikki Haley, and versus Vivek, and that's gonna be the debate.
that's gonna be the debate. We need Perry Johnson to get on the debate stage. Like I said, there's just gonna be some people need a turnaround, and he's one of those guys that just needs that turnaround. He needs someone that knows how to just get on a podcast. I'll put it this way: like Vivek is going on all these podcasts. Like I would just take the campaign. I'd be like, all right, you're doing a podcast on what? You're going on something. You're going on something. If someone has a cooking podcast, I don't care. You're getting on it. Why? It's publicity. You know what I mean, like you just got to throw people out there because that's really what you got to do. You got to make sure they're 24/7. You got to be around the clock on these guys. You got to make sure. Okay, I want them to be on that podcast. I want them to do this. Why? So when they scroll through TikTok or Instagram or YouTube Shorts, oh, this guy's running for office. Wait, I just saw him on this. Oh, he's relatable. It's that simple. You got to make them relatable, and you got to make sure they're pushed out there. You know, obviously, whoever's doing Dr. Oz's thing was not relatable. It was terrible, and I guess the campaign manager or whatever didn't know how to tell him you're not being relatable going to Wegmans. It's not really a good idea what you just did. Oh, and they pushed the publish button on it. Like there's just certain things that. Listen, like I said, I'm just upset at the fact that that if Trump doesn't get in as or doesn't want to do the debates, these guys aren't going to get out there and they don't know how to turn around their campaigns. And it's sad to see a bad campaign for me. I enjoy marketing, so it's kind of what I. And you mix that with politics, I mean, I'm all in. So that's where it comes from. So and yeah, that's pretty much it. Unless you have anything to add.
So no, I think that's all.
So I went on my rant
Mm-hmm.
about managing other people's you know their campaigns. But listen, it's been a very eventful week, I must say.
It really
And
has been.
I mean, it usually is, but now, I mean, this video is gonna go over an hour and 20. Look at that. I mean, it's just getting longer. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff to talk about, and within those things to talk about, we take a few detours because they're somewhat needed. I feel like. So, look, that's your news for the week. Okay, so you enjoy your Friday, you enjoy your weekend, and we'll be back on Wednesday as usual, doing what we do, give you the news, give you our takes, and that's pretty much it.
Yep. That's all.
So we'll see you next time.